So I just got done with Sabikui Bisco episode 5, and I have to say there's two things that I'm a bit disappointed about. One, an entire episode with no Chiruru. It seems like she's in the preview for the next episode, so hopefully she'll be back, but a little disappointed that she wasn't in the episode, to be honest. I mean, she adds a little bit of that flair. But the other thing that I'm kind of disappointed is starting to push up that fear is, despite the fact that I've kind of been giving this show a lot of leeway, or at least Studio Oz a lot of leeway with the series, is, it's starting to show where they're messing up. The animation's really starting to get rough with this series. Now, granted, it still gives you a shot of what's going on, but we're starting to get a lot of those little shots where they keep cutting to something and having a lot of sound effects and dialogue happening with just a still shot of something outside of it. It's the like the whole wake up girl scenario with the outside the window whenever something's happening inside the room. It sucks. It really does suck. I hope that they get their footing back and get back into the game, but right now there's a lot of stuff not happening, a lot of stuff not being shown, a lot of action not being shown, and they're just sticking to a lot of stills and a lot of scenery shots where they should have animation. Now, granted, again, there was a couple really amazing animation pieces early on in the series for sure, but I wasn't really expecting too much from the show, but they were still supplementing it with a lot of environment, a lot of detail in the environment itself. And again, we're not really getting that with this particular episode, or really anything since the first couple episodes. But despite this, we did get quite a bit of cool stuff in this episode. Really, what I call this episode is the Mushroom Keeper's perspective. This is the two different perspectives of something that different people see different sides of. And it was kind of one of those moments where towards the later part of this episode, I kind of wanted to yell at Bisco like, whoa, stop. Unless he just doesn't see it, Mushroom Keepers aren't always good. We've stated that several times. I mean, I think Jabby himself was very clear about this, that there's no shock that people can't trust Mushroom Keepers, because there's a lot of bad Mushroom Keepers out there. There's a lot of Mushroom Keepers that will use people for money or gain. They're not all out there trying to be like Bisco, trying to spread the mushrooms and try to find the cure, this Rust Eater Bisco. It's not always the case. And what we get with this episode is we have Powu is basically going to this one area that's being attacked by bandits, while at the same time Bisco and Milo are going to this other place with these kids, and they're getting a perspective of the good Mushroom Keepers. So first off with Powu, since this is like a back and forth, again, I really hate how this, I don't know if it's in the original light novel they do this, but I hate the jumping around thing. I really hate it. And I think it's more jarring because it's a time jump, obviously, because when Powu's out here, it's very dark, it's like dusk. And then when it's over here, it's daytime. So anyways, I'm not going to get into that again. But Powu ends up running into some spikes, some bandits left behind. And she hears some people screaming for help. She finds this big spider they take down. Before she takes it down, a couple people are falling from the top of this building. And she saves this elderly couple, and the elderly couple said, come stay at our place. We'll find a way to fix your tire. And they have a discussion. Now, this discussion is essentially about the origins of the city, how this city fell apart. And this is one of those troubling things, because at some point we get the reveal that these two old people are technically bad, they're bandits. So it's one of those things of like, was their story true? Were they always lying? That's the struggle right there. I mean, I would assume that they weren't lying, that essentially what happened back here with the Mushroom Keepers is what made them what they are now. They used to be normal people. This Mushroom Keeper pretty much destroyed this entire town, and then they basically went to being bandits in order to survive, and it twisted their minds. That's where I can see, like, they're both true. It could be a lie because they've always been lying, but they could both be true as well. But again, this is this vantage point of this city that's doing well, but they have the rust. And then this Mushroom Keeper comes in and starts offering a cure. And everybody's happy, everybody's doing well, but then they all start dying. So it's not as if the Mushroom Keeper had the cure. He was experimenting. He said, this was a great experiment. Thank you so much. Seemingly, he was trying to find a cure. I mean, that would be the assumption, but it wasn't tested right. And then these people end up with rust and they died anyways. So it kind of implies that it was a temporary cure that eventually led to it progressing faster, which I can see. But again, this whole perspective is showing how Mushroom Keepers can be bad. But yeah, then after that, she discovers that they were trying to drug her and they're making puppets out of people, something like that. And then when she fights back, they go, we're going to lose anyway, so let's blow ourselves up. So yeah, that ended weird. But again, I guess I just chop it up to the idea of they used to be normal people. They were happy. The Mushroom Keeper messed them up. And then they devolved from there. They went to madness from that point on. So it was cool to see more Pau, but I don't think Pau really stands on her own. I think that's the problem that I have with Pau. I think she's amazing. Her character design is fantastic, but I don't see her standing alone. Like, she needs somebody else to add chemistry. So technically this whole side of the story is very kind of serious and more kind of grounded. But anyways, on the other side of things, yes, we get the thankfully it made more sense than usual. We had the children's civilization arc with Bisco and Milo as they get captured by a bunch of kids that are afraid of them taking them back to the town. They immediately claim, you're going to take us back to Kurokawa's, and they're like, no, we're not doing that. And then that's when Bisco says, hey, by the way, I'm this wanted criminal. And then they bring him in to want to turn him in for money because they need money. And while Bisco's locked up and he's talking to some kid about the railway systems and everything, at the same time, Milo is essentially captive by this girl who lets him go because he's cute and she likes him. And he starts making a remedy for this shell skin disease that they have and ends up curing the entire town. And while they're like, well, thank you so much. Is there anything we can do for you? He's like, oh, no, let Bisco go. And they're like, no, we need the money. That's when they get attacked by these big blowfish. What they get into with this particular town, and again, this is kind of the opposite, is the corruption of the people, not necessarily the Mushroom Keepers. The Mushroom Keeper ends up being the one to save them. Where in this case, you have a little more inside of Kurokawa. This army comes in there. The people fought back. The chief, who was this kid Nut's father, fought back and got killed. And they claim that the medicine in order to cure these children was so expensive, the parents had to leave to make money. So apparently all the parents left. I don't know why all the parents left, but they left to get money. I don't know if they're claiming that the army forced them to leave, but obviously, again, this father tried to fight back and that didn't work out for them, so they probably all left to be a part of this army when they necessarily didn't want to. And the claims they would have the money to find the medicine to cure these children, which they never did. But obviously the big problem they have is these big blowfish keep showing up and just eating like hundreds of people every year, and that's the ones that come and attack them, and yeah, Bisco takes him out. It was really cool, the whole, you didn't write down the names on there, he can't read or something like that, so he starts making him like, name off all the stations as he shoots the different fish, and it was really cool. But this is a troubling thing, because at the very end here, what they kind of established is that they claim, thank you so much, you did so much for us. And Bisco tells them, in the future, whenever you run into a Mushroom Keeper, bring them in. Allow them to come in. And it's like, no, we just established over here that's a bad idea. You should always be worried. Just because somebody has a title doesn't mean they're always good people. Just because there's this group, it does not mean, and you're good in this group, does not mean the entire group is a good thing. So it's like, I was screaming on my screen like, no, use caution, accept them, but use caution. It's the same with anybody that comes to this town. Accept them, but use caution. And yeah, as they leave, this girl's like, Milo, stay here. He's like, no, you're good. This place, she's like, we need you. And you're like, no, they have you. They have somebody that will take care of them. And Milo puts it in a good point right there, is this idea of, they need somebody here that will accept people, that will bring people in a world that nobody trusts anybody and everybody's out to get everybody. That this girl is kind of the shining beacon of acceptance and care. And yes, to wrap up the episode, we have Kurokawa looking around for stuff and investigating, and then he eventually, he signals all of his men to do something. They all do it except for one, who was a spy within the group, and yes, that was Jabi. So Kurokawa seemingly has Jabi as a hostage at this point. So interesting. I like I said before, I'm really curious how they're going to bring Kurokawa back into the picture. I assume that he was going to jump onto a vehicle and chase after Pau because he knew Pau was going after him, and he didn't want Bisco captured. He wanted Bisco dead, but he's seemingly staying behind. Now, they're still bringing him into the picture, constantly talking about, like, with these children and how he basically ruined all these people's lives, but not necessarily how he's going to be fitting into the picture for the story going forward unless they come back to this town, coming back to Imihawa. But anyways, like I said before, despite some bad shots and animation points, or lack thereof animation, Solid episode, giving the two different perspectives of what mushroom keepers are and if they're good or bad people, and additionally that idea of not really trusting people and having the care for others in this world that just seems to have a lot of nastiness in it. So, but yeah, that's my thoughts on episode 5 of Sabikui Bisco. Hopefully the animation picks back up. If you like this video, hit that like button down below, comment, let me know what you thought of the episode, subscribe if you haven't already, share this video if you can, support us on Patreon, or throw a tips link in the description below. We definitely appreciate everybody it does, and y'all take care.